Rick, welcome, and thank you for taking a few minutes just to update us on the transformational workshops and how things are going to be changing a little bit as we move forward. So first, I want to just ask you for some words of wisdom and the current situation.
Yeah, well, as we're all aware, this current situation looks like it's with us for a long time. Yesterday, we just surpassed 100,000 deaths of COVID-19. More than 1.5 million people in our country are impacted by this. It's hit every county just about in the country, but there are some places in Minnesota where it has avoided it, I know. But we are in the midst of a significant shift of how things are happening. So I'd like for us to think as congregations about how we bring people along and give words of hope in a situation that's like this. To begin to think about ways in which we support people in our communities for all the different changes. There's more than 30 million people now that are unemployed. And we know that that has impacted people in just about every community that we're looking at. So as we think about adapting our churches for the future, one of the things that's important for us to note is that in doing online services and making those initial changes, the people that you're probably engaging in your congregation are people who are already a part of the core membership of your congregation. These are people that are committed to your church that are going to be there no matter what. And you've probably got a few people in an outer circle who are marginally committed, but who are still there fairly regularly and participating in that. What most of our churches are now starting to lose is that outer ring, that outer donut of participation within the life of our congregations. The people that are once a monthers or people who are the Christmas and Easter folks, they don't know how to quite yet to engage in this new way of being church and how we can do it. We also need to be thinking about the impact on our communities that COVID-19 has had. With unemployment rates rising, I just heard the statistic yesterday of how single mothers are 22 times more likely to be unemployed now than they were before the pandemic. And so what does this mean for single mothers and for families and the situations that they're raising their people in? Another thing we know is that there are a lot of people more working at home. Maybe there's a way that we can utilize our resources in a different way that would help people who are working at home maybe expand their horizons or at least have another place to work by utilizing our facilities that are largely sitting empty right now and maybe providing them space. I saw a picture the other day of a man working who had his children actually taped to the floor so that he could get some work done. We need to think about ways in which we can help families in these different situations to think about how they can work with one another. What are we going to do about Bible school? What are we going to do about teaching our children about the faith now that we can't do that? Zoom has some limitations there. I know that our church is working on a vacation Bible school that'll be virtual. How will that impact children, and how will that how will we be able to tell the story of Jesus to them as time goes on? And I think the important part for us to think about as we're even working on developing our future stories is, it's important to note that these changes are going to change us forever. I don't think for my own church, for example, that we're going to ever go back and worship the same way that we worshiped before the pandemic. Choir singing, those kinds of things are just too risky, particularly for older populations and things like that. So we're going to have to be thinking differently about how we express ourselves in worship and what we do. So I think by and large, there's some new challenges that are ahead of us. And for those of us that are thinking about those as challenges and ways in which we might turn those into opportunities, we're going to be ahead of the game. And we won't be defeated by these things. And it'll be important for us to think about as we begin to work in our future stories and work at that.
So it's good. So what I'm hearing from you, Rick, is it's good that we started this process of transformation and working with you in the transformational workshops that we've had. So it's kind of putting us at a good place as far as moving forward in the new future that we're going to be encountering.
That's right. And I have to also say that that means changing how we do the workshops. We do this with different middle-level judicatories all over the country, different denominations and things like that. And I'm having to work extra hard with you guys because of the pandemic and because of the way in which we do our delivery methods. And so the biggest change is going to be for this third workshop that we do together, which is coming up in June. And I thought maybe I'd just say a word about how we redesigned that, if that's okay.
Please do.
Yeah. What's really happens normally in a setting when we can all gather together in one building is people break off into different groups and go into different rooms with their coaches, and we share stories together. And I have a chance to listen to those stories and work our way around that. That's not going to be possible with the Zoom limitations that we have on this next gathering. So what we're proposing is that on the week of June 23rd through 26th, each cohort of 3 congregations, which is the 3 congregations that meet together with your coach, that each of those cohorts would meet on one evening, a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. And we'll meet from 7 o'clock in the evening until 9 p.m. We won't take all that time if we don't need it. But at that time, we're going to expect you to tell us where you're at as a congregation. You're going to have a chance to share your future story, how it's developed so far, what you've identified as your central passion as a congregation, and then, or your why, as we've been calling it, and for us to give you input, not just me, but the coach to give you input, and for the other 2 congregations that hear your story to give you input. I think this is going to be a really valuable experience for each cohort and for each congregation, just to kind of get to where you're at. Now, does that mean your future story has to be polished and up to full speed and everything like that? No, we don't ever expect your future story to really ever be totally done. That you're always going to be finding ways to improve that and to create that story in such a much better way. But this is an opportunity for you to share that story and to get it out. I've sent some guidelines through Keith, and I think I hope you will read those guidelines for the kinds of elements that we look for in a future story, but it'll give you a chance to think about that. And then when we gather together on Saturday, June 27th, that will be all of us together at one time. And on June 27th, we will only meet from 9 to 12. You'll get the same amount of hours, you just don't have to do it all in one day. And so that would probably be better for everybody and give you a chance. But it gives us, I think, a more thorough opportunity to look at how these future stories are coming together, how your church is dealing with all these situations, and to get some direct input from your coach and from myself and from your other congregations in the thing. A lot more input.
Sounds like a good way to move forward, that we're being transformative and we're kind of evolving and changing with the changing of times, as we're asking churches to do.
That's right. In the Saturday session, we're going to be talking a lot more about how we begin to polish this into building capacity. You know, it's one thing to dream a big dream, but how do you turn dreams into reality? And the process of getting there. That's what the Saturday session is going to be about, and how to plan that. And also at the end of the Saturday session, we're going to be finally talking about how do you begin to introduce this to the rest of the congregation. We're not at the point where we are ready to share anything with the congregation, but sometime after Saturday, we're going to be working on building our capacity and building our readiness to begin to share this with our congregations so that we can start doing that in the fall.